Howdy y'all, I hope you're having a great day. Silver Trade here again with another video. Thank you guys so much for 450 subs. I mean, every time I look at that, it blows me away and I can't even believe it. Thank you guys so much and thank you for checking this out. GameStop had an at-the-money quote-unquote dilution, but now they got 4.6 billion cash, which has made shareholder equity absolutely explode. What is shareholder equity? Well, that's total assets minus total liabilities. Shareholder equity is the sum of all current and long assets. Current assets including cash, inventory, and accounts receivables. Long-term assets include buildings, equipment, patents, and notes receivable. The result of this calculation is the value that shareholders would receive if the company liquidated its assets and paid off all its debts. This is also known as the company's net worth. And today we're going to talk about how I have a little bit more evidence on why I think we're going to get a post from Roaring Kitty soon. XRT is at 382.76% short. And I'm sure y'all have already heard about this, but Bank of America showing people all over the country that they have zero in their accounts. Left and right. I would show y'all all of the posts, but there were too many, so I'm just going to show one. And it's kind of crazy how Bank of America is having all these problems and showing that people don't have any money in their accounts when Warren Buffett this year has sold about $9 billion worth of stock. Did he know about the banking problem, or is he getting ready for the recession, or does he know something that we don't? And it's gone. Barclays is also being fined for illegal swap reporting, and TD is now getting caught with illegal market manipulation. I mean, is there a single platform that isn't doing illegal stuff out there? Well, I guess there is one, Moomoo, which is also the sponsor of today's video. Please use my link down below, and you'll be welcomed with a generous 8.1% APY for the first 3 months, 5 free stocks once you deposit $100, and 10 free stocks once you deposit $1,000. These guys have the best news out of any stock app I have ever used, hands down. Thank you, Moomoo, so much for sponsoring this video. This chart shows GME institutional ownership based on the most recent 13F filings available, made in mid-August, but with the holding data on June 30th. Remember again, the first two at-the-money offerings only were completed by the 30th of June, representing 120 million of the 140 million issued in total over the summer. According to these filings, institutional ownership has only increased by a mere 9 million shares, represented by the red arrow above, still leaving us with 111 shares missing. We're going to have to wait until mid-November to learn if these firms have similarly bought and held onto any of the 20 million shares also issued in the third at-the-money offering. And on the other hand, the publicly available filings do leave open the possibility of one or more larger buyers for up to 22 million shares each, or 5% total of the shares outstanding, by non-financial institutions or corporations. A second possibility is one or more qualified institutional investor for up to 44 million shares, 10% ownership. As such, a purchase would only need to be reported by the 14th of February 2025. Obviously, that's pretty far. This guy doesn't think that retail has 2.2 billion at their disposal on demand, which is a fair point, especially when moral is crushed by the ATM during the announcements. This is a post by a Swedish ape. And over in Sweden, they have regular updates of the amount of customers in Scandinavia holding GME. These brokers have consistently reported such figures, and they provide one of the very few real data points about actual GME ownership by retail investors through their brokers. It should be noted that the figures are for the Swedish customers only and at one broker, and the total number in the Scandinavia as a whole with the other broker. Even still, this is showing 35,000 GME holders at just these two brokers only. In a region with a population of 27 million, so basically one ape for every 770 Swedes. I've shown y'all this picture before of all the countries holding GME. I don't know if I really agree with this guy thinking that most of the apes are in Europe, but I would be happy to be wrong. The ownership data from the Nordic countries is very useful for estimating wider GME brokerage ownership globally, based on the data set and the inferences from the geographical distribution and concentration of apes, plus the populations of these countries as below. My estimate is from the United States, 334 million, this is totally not right. Like, we were at like 400 million before 2024, so this is nowhere near high enough. Like, this isn't even close. But he added all of these countries together, got 919 million, divided it by the 770 Swedes per one ape, and got the rough number of 1.2 million apes globally. This would make sense too because Roaring Kitty, after posting in the first 24 hours, had about 8 million people look at his tweet. But this is also likely an undercount because the figure of 1 ape for every 770 people is based on incomplete Scandinavian data. Stock ownership in the most populous North America is much higher than in Europe, and also, of course, because it's not counting apes in other nations and regions. Like we just talked about, the estimate of 1.2 million apes globally, that would have required each ape to have bought about 58 shares each for the 140 million at the money offering. Is it possible that every ape owns 58 shares? The people that commented down on this guy's post, just from 9 people, had a total of 4,200 shares. Who knows if they were BSing though, and there is probably also a lot of people that don't want to disclose their positions as well. This guy got the average of 426 shares per ape from his 93 shares, along with the 4,200 over here, divided by 10, about 426 shares per ape. That seems a little high to me, but I would be happy to be wrong. Here are 2 great comments on the actual mechanisms potentially used by Roaring Kitty. I've been watching GME dark pools trade of 5K blocks that began on 5/13. If the majority of these trades are buys, this entity has an upwards of 30 million shares currently from my math. They would have hit a 5% ownership in June 17th. There were some interesting Twitter posts from somebody on the 17th as well, right? But again, if they are QLL, they do not have to report until February of next year. If we assume this entity is Roaring Kitty, we have seen historically a YOLO update containing 9 million shares, and there's strong evidence that there was at least 4,600,000 shares exercised through his calls, delivered on 9/20. That total comes to about 9.90% of GME float, accounting for the latest offerings. If even a sliver of these shares were bought by Roaring Kitty, he's likely hitting the 10% cumulative ownership target and would soon need to report. Personally, I think he purchased the dark pool shares through Roaring Kitty LLC, but if he is the cumulative benefactor, he will need to report at 10%. How much would the internet absolutely break if he showed that he was a 10% owner? There's nothing too special about blocks of 5,000 shares. However, it is interesting that they started on 5/13.
You're still here? It's over.
We're done. When I say we're done.
Wake from your sleep, the drying of your tears. Today we escape, we escape.
And that first day was over 1.3 million shares purchased at the cost of nearly 40 million, all within 12 hours of Roaring Kitty returning from his hiatus. I find the timing extremely curious. Also, there have been 5,000 block trades every single day since 5/13, with the exception of 1 day of silence on 9/19. We were just talking yesterday that I think Roaring Kitty is going to make a post soon, so that way in 110 days from now, it'll be January 27th. GameStop released Form 144. Danielle Moore sold 403 shares, and then Mark Robinson sold 565 shares. Both for tax purposes, nothing to see here. A naked short is when somebody borrows shares, but the shares are never located. This is the source of synthetic shares people talk about. The thing is, the short position is still on the books as a short position. Under current Rule 4560, firms report to FINRA the gross short interest in a security across all accounts twice a month. Firms have 2 business days after the settlement date to submit the reports. The data do not distinguish the type or identity of accounts with short positions. The data also does not reflect short positions that are achieved synthetically or loan obligations resulting from arranged finances. The data also do not reflect short positions that are achieved synthetically. So somebody's lying here. But luckily, FINRA is considering requiring firms to reflect synthetic short positions in their short interest reports. FINRA was talking about making institutions show their synthetic shares and shorts 3 years ago. But SIFMA firms are also strongly opposed to the reporting of synthetic short positions, given the potential overlap or conflict with other regulatory blah 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 blah. Why can't we just be honest? Like, let's see it. And look at this article and go to the comments. You will see hundreds and hundreds of people commenting that they like this idea. And the massive U.S. port strike has begun. Thousands of dock workers are officially on strike across the East Coast. It could cost the U.S. economy up to $5 billion each day. Really, if we wanted to, the president could completely shut this down with the Taft-Hartley Act, which basically authorizes a president to seek a court order for an 80-day cooling off period for companies and unions to try and resolve their differences. But the leader of the union has said if they do that, then they're not going to work even a fourth as hard as they normally do. So there's really no point for Biden to do that. And it looks like he wasn't planning on it either way. Y'all think it's kind of funny how we decided to pull out of that one place because of that one guy and leave behind a whole bunch of stuff, like $40 billion worth of stuff? Like, we didn't even have time to bring the German Shepherds back home. We just up and left. And then like a year later, I hope y'all saw that post I posted. Bill Gates recently said, if America avoids a world war, then there will be a pandemic. You got to check out Bill Gates' tweet. It's pretty crazy. I can't even believe it. Oh, and if you've made it this far, extra tinfoily part. So, you know the beer emojis, how the last two emojis are beer emojis? What if the two beer emojis are actually supposed to mean a 4-year anniversary, which would put us at January 2025? You know, 2 beer bottles, each of them are 2 liters. It's beer, and they're clashing, so it's an anniversary. 4-year anniversary. But that's like super tinfoily. I don't know, extra tinfoily. But thank you guys so much for making it this far. Thank you so much for getting me to 450 subs. Y'all are the absolute best. I hope you have an amazing day. God bless you, and thank you.